The words hit me like a physical blow. You don't deserve anything, Martin. My mother's voice was cold and final, echoing through her living room where I stood frozen. At 41 years old, I had driven 3 hours expecting a normal family meeting. Instead, I found myself publicly humiliated in front of her husband Victor and his smug children who sat on the leather couch, barely containing their laughter. You've made nothing but mistakes, she continued, listing every failure from my 20s like she had been keeping a detailed scorecard. The DUI at 23. The failed business at 26. The divorce at 29. Each one landed like a stone. So Victor and I have decided to remove you from the estate entirely. His children have shown far more responsibility. The stepchildren exchanged satisfied glances. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. My throat closed around words that wouldn't come. You've never achieved anything, my mother finished, her eyes meeting mine without a flicker of warmth. And you never will, Martin. My name is Martin Hale. I'm 41 years old from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Do you want to hear more stories like this? Please subscribe to the channel. You won't regret it. I left the house trembling, not with anger but with a hurt so deep it felt physical. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove aimlessly through town, my mother's words repeating in an endless loop. You've never achieved anything. And you never will. The sun was setting when I found myself at Clearwater Lake, the place my father used to take me fishing every Sunday before he died 8 years ago. I parked at the old boat launch and walked to the dock, my legs weak. Sitting on the weathered wood, I finally broke down. Tears came in waves I couldn't control. But somewhere in that breakdown, something hardened inside me. I made a silent vow to myself, to my father's memory. I would never let anyone speak to me like that again. Never. As the last light faded, I noticed something through my tears. The old property across the lake, the one my father always talked about restoring. The cabins looked abandoned now, their roofs sagging, windows dark. But they were still standing. The next morning, I drove around the lake to get a closer look at the property. 6 small cabins sat among overgrown brush and fallen trees. They were in terrible shape, but the bones were solid. Can I help you? An elderly man emerged from a shed, wiping his hands on a rag. He introduced himself as Thomas, the caretaker who had been looking after the place for years. Owner died 5 years back, Thomas explained, gesturing at the cabins. Family wants nothing to do with it. Going up for auction next month. My heart jumped. How much are they asking? Thomas shrugged. Won't get much. No one wants property this far out that needs this much work. Maybe 40,000 if they're lucky. I walked through the property with Thomas, memories flooding back. My father had brought me here once when I was 12, pointing at these same cabins. Someone should save this place, Thomas said quietly, watching my face. Before it's gone forever. The Lancaster Community Credit Union was small, just 3 desks and a tired-looking fern in the corner. I sat across from loan officer Patricia Thornton, explaining my proposal. 6 cabins. Full restoration. Turn it into a wellness retreat. Her expression grew more skeptical with every word. Mr. Hale, you're talking about a $100,000 project minimum. You have no hospitality experience, no business plan, and the property is in serious disrepair. She slid my application back across the desk. I'm sorry, but this is too risky. I stood to leave, my mother's voice echoing in my head. Another failure to add to her list. Wait. A man stepped out from the back office, gray-haired and weathered. You're Bill Hale's son, aren't you? I nodded. Your father helped me 20 years ago when my family lost everything. Gave me work when no one else would. He extended his hand. I'm Dennis Cooper, board member. Let me help you the way your dad helped me. 3 days later I had my loan. News traveled fast in our family network. Within a week, my cousin called to tell me my mother knew about the property purchase. She's telling everyone you bought rotting cabins with borrowed money, he said carefully. She called it another irresponsible disaster. I wasn't surprised. What hurt was hearing how she laughed while saying it, how she told relatives this would be my biggest failure yet. My cousin sent me a recording someone had made at a family dinner. My mother's voice came through clearly. Martin has no sense. He'll drown in debt like he always does. Then Victor's voice, smug and certain. Let him drown. Maybe it'll finally teach him something about real life. I played that recording 3 times, letting the words fuel something new inside me. Not anger. Not hurt. Determination. Pure, focused determination. I saved the file to my computer. I didn't know why yet, but instinct told me to keep it. The work was brutal. I quit my accounting job and moved into one of the cabins that had the least damage. Every morning I woke at sunrise and worked until dark, replacing rotted floorboards, scraping decades of grime, hauling lumber. My hands blistered, then calloused. My back ached constantly. Some days the progress was so small I wanted to cry. I would stand in the middle of a half-gutted cabin, surrounded by tools and debris, and hear my mother's voice. "You've never achieved anything." Maybe she was right. Maybe this was just another mistake, another item for her list. 3 months in, I was repairing a roof when someone called up to me. A woman with a camera stood in the clearing below. "I'm Elena Martinez, travel photographer. I'm documenting disappearing places in rural Pennsylvania." She gestured at the cabins. "Mind if I photograph your work? There's something beautiful about restoration." I climbed down, suspicious but curious. Why would anyone care about this? Elena visited every few weeks, documenting my progress. She took photos of me replacing windows, photos of the transformed interiors, photos of the lake at sunset. "People love comeback stories," she explained. One person refusing to let something die. 2 months later she called. "The Pennsylvania Tourism Journal wants to run a feature. One man restoring a forgotten town. Are you okay with that?" The article came out in March. It was small, just 3 pages, but something about it resonated. I started getting emails from people in neighboring counties. Some wanted to book stays. Others offered advice or materials. One email was from a producer at a regional lifestyle show. Then a state tourism board member reached out. Within weeks, I had my first official booking. 6 cabins, all reserved for a weekend in May. But the email that changed everything came from a magazine I had actually heard of. "We'd like to feature your project in our summer issue. National distribution. Are you interested?" The first full-capacity weekend arrived in May. I had worked myself nearly to death preparing. Fresh paint, new linens, a welcome basket in each cabin with local honey and coffee. The guests arrived Friday evening, 3 couples and 2 solo travelers, all looking for peace away from their busy lives. I was terrified they would hate it. Saturday morning I found notes slipped under my door. "This place is magic. I slept better than I have in years. Thank you for creating this." One guest, an older woman, found me by the dock. "I lost my husband last year. This is the first place I've felt peace since." I couldn't speak, just nodded. Sunday as they were leaving, one man approached me. "I'm Warren Hughes. I host a radio show in Philadelphia." He handed me his card. "I'm going to talk about this place on air. People need to know about it." Warren's radio segment aired on a Wednesday. I didn't hear it, but my phone started ringing that afternoon with booking requests. Then my cousin called again. "Martin, your mother saw you on the local news. They did a segment about the radio feature." I waited for him to continue. "She's furious. She told everyone you're using a sob story to get attention, that you're manipulating people's emotions for profit." My stomach turned. Even Succes she had to poison. Victor called it hillbilly nonsense in front of everyone at Bridge Club. "They're telling people not to support you because it's built on lies." My cousin paused. "Martin, I recorded them again. Do you want to hear it?" I did. My mother's voice was sharp with contempt. "He's exploiting the family name to make himself look sympathetic. It's pathetic." The recording cut off. I saved this one too, adding it to a folder I had titled simply, Evidence. I didn't know what I would do with it, but I knew I wanted it preserved. They showed up unannounced on a Tuesday morning. Victor's children, Kyle and Stephanie, pulled up in a BMW and climbed out looking around with obvious disdain. "We need to talk about your business," Kyle said without greeting. "You're using the name Hale Retreat. That's our family name too." I leaned against the porch railing. "It's my name. My father's name." Stephanie stepped forward, arms crossed. "You're exploiting the family reputation for profit. We want you to change the name immediately or we'll pursue legal action." They thought they had me cornered. I could see it in their smug expressions. I pulled out my phone and opened a document. "I trademarked Hale Retreat 6 months ago. Legal and binding." I showed them the official certificate. "You have no claim to it." "None at all." Kyle's face went red. "This isn't over." "Actually," I said calmly, "it is. You're on private property and you're not welcome here. Please leave." They left without another word. I watched their car disappear down the road, my hands steady. Summer brought success beyond anything I had imagined. The national magazine feature came out in June, and bookings exploded. I was fully booked through November. The Pennsylvania Tourism Board gave me an award for rural business development. Local news came to film segments. I had to hire staff, 3 local women who needed work, 2 maintenance workers, a cook for weekend brunches. The town of Clearwater, which had been dying slowly for decades, started seeing renewed life. The general store hired another employee. The gas station's business doubled. People thanked me on the street for bringing attention back to the area. I wasn't trying to revive a town. I was just trying to prove my mother wrong. But the effect was real and visible. Then I got the email that would change everything. Hello, Martin. This is Jillian Cross from American Renewal, a lifestyle television program. We'd like to feature your story as part of our series on personal transformation. Would you be available for filming in August? I read it 3 times before responding yes. My friend Drew called in late July with news I hadn't expected. Martin, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I think you should know. You worked at a bank in town. Victor's been draining your mother's accounts. He's been doing it for over a year. My chest tightened. What do you mean draining? Taking out large sums, forging her signature on some documents. His kids have credit cards under her name with massive balances. I saw the paperwork cross my desk. He paused. She's going to lose the house if it continues. I sat down heavily. My first instinct was to call her, to warn her, to help. Then I remembered her words. The recordings. The public mockery. Thanks for telling me, I said to Drew. But I can't get involved. She made her choice about me. Instead, I started a new folder on my computer. I documented everything Drew told me, dated and detailed. If my mother ever tried to blame me for her financial troubles, I would have proof I had nothing to do with it. August brought the first signs of real collapse. Drew called again. The house is 3 months behind on mortgage payments. The bank sent a notice. My mother had lived in that house for 30 years. My father had paid it off before he died, but she must have refinanced at some point. Now Victor's mismanagement was costing her everything. I heard through relatives that she and Victor were fighting constantly. The stepchildren had stopped visiting, leaving them alone to deal with mounting bills and creditor calls. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sick. Then the email came. No greeting, no warmth. Just 7 words. Martin, we need to talk. Come by Saturday. It was the first direct contact I had had with her in 6 months. My hand hovered over the delete button. But something made me respond. I'll meet you at the coffee shop downtown. Noon. I wouldn't go back to that house. Not ever again. She looked older. That was my first thought when I saw her sitting at a corner table in the coffee shop. Her face was drawn, her clothes less put together than usual. Victor wasn't with her. She didn't apologize. Didn't acknowledge what she had said to me. Just launched into her request. I need help with some bills. Just temporary until Victor's business deal comes through. She stirred her coffee without looking at me. It's family. You should help family. My chest tightened with old familiar hurt. She still couldn't say she was wrong. Couldn't admit she had been cruel. Just expected me to solve her problems because of blood. I can't help you, I said quietly. Mom, you chose Victor over me. You chose his children. You told me I would never achieve anything and cut me from your life. Her face hardened. So this is revenge? You're successful now, so you're punishing me? This isn't revenge. This is boundary. I can't fix problems that were created by disrespect and lies. I stood to leave. I hope you figure it out. But I can't be your solution. The American Renewal episode filmed over 3 days in September. Jillian Cross was professional and kind, asking questions that dug deep into my story. What made you decide to do this? She asked while we stood by the lake. My father dreamed of restoring this place. After he died, I felt lost. Then some things happened with family that made me realize I needed to build something that was mine. Something no one could take from me or diminish. The camera rolled as I talked about the work, the struggles, the small victories. Tell me about your family, Jillian said carefully. I heard there was some difficulty there. I chose my words carefully. My mother told me I would never achieve anything. She removed me from her life because she didn't believe I was capable of success. I didn't name her directly. Didn't give details. Just stated facts. The episode ended with me watching the sunset from the dock. Jillian's voiceover said, Martin Hale proved that sometimes the people who doubt us most are the ones who don't really know us at all. The episode aired in October. Within hours, my email and social media exploded. Messages from people I hadn't heard from in decades. My high school history teacher wrote, I always knew you had this in you. A former coworker said, you were always the most determined person I knew. This doesn't surprise me at all. Neighbors from my childhood sent notes of support. Even people I didn't know reached out with encouragement. But the real impact was local. In Clearwater and Lancaster, people started talking. Not about me, about my mother. I heard it from Drew first. Everyone knows she's the mother who told you that you'd never succeed. She's become the cautionary tale. At the grocery store, at church, at the bank, people whispered, "That's the woman who disowned her son before he made it." I didn't tell them to talk. Didn't encourage it. But small towns remember everything and they don't forgive easily. My mother had spent months mocking me publicly. Now the public was returning the favor. It brought me no joy. Just a hollow sense of justice. Victor's house of cards collapsed in November. The state's attorney office began investigating financial fraud cases, and Victor's name appeared on their list. According to Drew, someone had reported him for forging signatures and misappropriating funds. The stepchildren disappeared immediately. Kyle moved to Ohio. Stephanie stopped answering her mother's calls. Victor and my mother were left alone to face creditors, lawyers, and collection agencies. I was working on cabin repairs when an investigator arrived at the retreat. "Martin Hale? I'm Detective Torres with the State Fraud Division." My heart sank. What did I have to do with this? "Your mother filed a complaint suggesting you pressured her financially and may have influenced some transactions. I need to ask you some questions." I felt sick. Even now, facing ruin, she was trying to drag me down. "I haven't spoken to my mother about money in over a year. I haven't taken anything from her. Ever. Can you prove that?" I could. I showed him everything. Bank statements, emails, the recordings I had saved. 2 hours later, Detective Torres apologized. "This actually helps us more than you know." Detective Torres explained that my evidence proved a timeline that contradicted Victor's claims. "He's been saying your mother willingly signed documents. But your records show he was acting alone, and your mother's attempts to blame you actually reveal she didn't know what was happening." The investigation shifted completely to Victor. Evidence mounted quickly: forged signatures on loan documents, credit cards opened in my mother's name, transfers from her accounts to his children. Within 2 weeks, Victor was facing multiple felony charges. I stayed completely out of it. Didn't comment, didn't get involved, didn't offer help. I just watched from a distance as the life my mother had chosen over me crumbled around her. Then she called. I almost didn't answer. "Martin." Her voice was thick with tears. "They're taking the house. The bank is foreclosing. I have 60 days. I waited. I don't know what to do." Silence stretched between us. Finally, I said, "I'm sorry that's happening." And I hung up. It felt cruel. It felt necessary. I didn't know which feeling was right. They arrived on a cold November afternoon. I was splitting wood by the main cabin when I heard the car. My mother and Victor stepped out, both looking defeated in a way I had never seen. My staff members froze, recognizing them immediately. The story had spread through town. Everyone knew who they were. "Martin, please." My mother's voice cracked. "We need a place to stay. Just temporary. We won't be any trouble." Victor stood behind her, silent for once, his smugness gone. They wanted to stay here. In the retreat I had built from nothing while they mocked me. In the cabins they had called hillbilly nonsense. "We can't pay right now," my mother continued. "But when things are settled we'll—" "No." The word came out firm and final. "You don't house people who treat others without dignity." My mother's face crumpled. "You're my son. Doesn't that mean anything?" It meant everything to me. That's why it hurt so much when you threw it away. I looked at Victor, then back at her. "I don't take in people who lack basic respect for others. That's my policy for everyone. You're not exempt." My mother broke down then, completely. Not the controlled crying I had seen from her before, but deep, gasping sobs. "I was wrong," she said between breaths. "I was so wrong about you. About everything." Victor touched her shoulder, but she shook him off. "This is your fault. All of it. You and your children drained me dry." She looked at me with desperate eyes. "I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I let him convince me you were irresponsible, that you'd never change." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "But you did change. You built something real. And I destroyed our relationship for a man who destroyed my life." I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy. Just emptiness. "Do you want my honesty?" I asked quietly. "Or do you want my sympathy?" She looked up. "What's the difference?" "Honesty means I tell you exactly how your words shaped my darkest years. Sympathy means I tell you it's okay and help you anyway." My mother took a shuddering breath. "I want honesty. I think I've had enough lies." We sat on the porch steps while Victor waited by the car. I told her everything. How her words haunted me every single day for 6 months. How I almost gave up 100 times because her voice in my head said I would fail. How every small victory felt hollow because I knew she would never acknowledge it. You told me I'd never achieve anything, I said, my voice steady. Do you know what that does to someone? To hear that from your own mother? She cried silently, staring at her hands. I was angry. You made so many mistakes when you were younger. The DUI, the business failure, the divorce. I thought I was protecting myself from more disappointment. So you decided I was a lost cause. That I wasn't worth believing in. Yes. She looked at me finally. And I was wrong. Completely, horribly wrong. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a pamphlet from the local housing assistance nonprofit. This organization helps people in crisis find temporary housing and financial counseling. They're good at what they do. I handed it to her. That's all I can offer you. She took the pamphlet with shaking hands. That's it? That's all? That's all. She stood slowly like her bones hurt. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. Victor called her name from the car. She ignored him. Martin, I know I don't deserve to ask this. But is there any chance, maybe years from now, that we could try again? Could I ever earn my way back into your life? I thought about it honestly. I don't know, Mom. Right now the answer is no. You broke something fundamental. Maybe time will heal it. Maybe it won't. But I need to protect my peace. I wish I had protected yours, she whispered. She walked back to the car. They drove away and I watched until they disappeared down the road. My staff looked at me with concern. I'm fine, I told them. And I was not happy, not victorious. Just fine. I had protected my boundary. That was enough for now. The next day, I met with the mayor about expanding the nature trails around the lake. The town held a celebration in December. Clearwater's revival had been featured in several newspapers, and the mayor wanted to recognize the businesses that had made it possible. I was shocked when he announced a new nature trail would be named the William Hale Memorial Trail, after my father. I hadn't asked for this. But the mayor explained that I had quietly funded the trail's development as a tribute. I had forgotten I had even done that. The community gathered for the dedication. People I had helped with jobs, tourists who had found peace at the retreat, locals whose businesses had improved. It felt surreal. Afterward, a journalist approached me. Mr. Hale, your mother has been reaching out to news outlets asking to make a public statement. She says she misses her son and wants to reconcile. She held out a recorder. Would you like to respond? I thought carefully before speaking. I wish my mother healing and peace. But I've learned that protecting your own peace sometimes means stepping away from people who repeatedly harm it. Sometimes love means having boundaries. The video of my statement went viral, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't dramatic or angry. People shared it because of what they called its emotional maturity. Articles appeared with titles like, "The Most Mature Response to Family Conflict We've Ever Seen," and "How One Man Chose Healing Over Revenge." My phone exploded with interview requests, speaking opportunities, even a book deal offer. I turned down most of them. This wasn't about fame. It was about building a life I could be proud of. The American Renewal episode won an award. Bookings stayed strong through winter. I hired more local staff and started planning expansion. My mother tried to reach out twice more through intermediaries. Each time I politely declined contact. It felt right. Not bitter, not vindictive. Just protective of what I had built, both externally and internally. I heard she and Victor eventually found a small apartment in another county. The legal case against Victor was ongoing. The stepchildren never returned. I didn't follow it closely. Their story was no longer part of mine. 3 years later, I stood on the dock at sunset watching guests enjoy the retreat. 15 cabins now, all fully booked. A small café on site. Nature trails winding through the woods my father had loved. I had built something lasting from nothing but determination and hurt transformed into purpose. A family approached me, parents and 2 teenage kids. Mr. Hale? We just wanted to thank you. We heard your story about how you rebuilt your life after family rejection. It inspired us to work on repairing our own broken relationships. The mother's eyes were bright with tears. Your story helped us realize we were making the same mistakes with our son. We're here trying to reconnect with him. I felt something warm spread through my chest. This was what mattered. Not the revenge I could have taken. Not the bitterness I could have held. But the life I had built that somehow helped others build theirs. Later, alone on the dock, I thought about my mother. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either, not in any active way. She had become someone I used to know, someone whose opinion no longer shaped my reality. I had wanted her approval for so long. Now I had something better. My own. The sun set over Clearwater Lake, painting everything gold. I had never achieved anything she had said. I smiled at the memory. She had been wrong about everything.